Did the Wisconsin Badgers add enough in the spring transfer portal window to really make a difference? And will they have any impact recruits in 2025?
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily transfer portal, NIL, and recruiting news. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into an Xbox. No console is required. Head over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Today's show is all about the Badgers. Wisconsin needs a reprieve from last season, if you will, and they had a chance this spring with the portal window. We're going to talk extensively about what they did or didn't do. We're also going to talk about what's still needed potentially for the Badgers in the portal and any impact recruits coming in that just signed this past December. Those are all the topics today, and to help me figure that out, that guy, Ryan Herrings from Locked On Badgers. There he is, the eternal optimist who thinks Wisconsin's going undefeated all time. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm good. And yes, I'm taking the over again this year. Third straight year, I'm going to take the over on the Badgers. I've been wrong the last couple. Can't be wrong 3 years in a row, right? Like the over's got to hit at some point. That's a gambling mentality if there ever was one. So yeah, I'm doing great, man. Ready to rock and roll.
All right, man. I'm not going to comment on your gambling habits and how I would have beat you in those. But number one question today, this is the thing that fans like. Who's the exciting splash player they got in the portal? Is there one, or at least somebody you think is going to be, for lack of a better term, help them win games?
Yeah, they didn't do a ton in the spring portal. I mean, if we're talking portal in general, it's Billy Edwards Jr., right? It's the quarterback. And man, I've talked a ton about it. Like, because I'll talk to other hosts, other podcast hosts, other people in this industry, and they say, well, Billy Edwards is just solid. I'm like, exactly. Exactly. Did you see what we did last year? You know,
that was horrible. I couldn't watch Wisconsin offense last year. It was really hard to watch. Like, seriously.
100%. You know, we don't need the mansion on the hill. We need just a solid foundation. And Billy Edwards Jr. can do that. I think he's borderline. He's the type of guy that you could even see him in the fringe at the end of an NFL draft. He's 6'4". He's got enough arm. He can move. He's solid, and he is going to bring an element to this Wisconsin passing game. I think that they just didn't have remotely with Braden Locke. So it starts with Billy Edwards Jr. He's played in the Big Ten. He's played the Michigans. He can move. He fits really well with Jeff Grimes, the new offensive coordinator, who, if you watch his offenses at Kansas, wants a quarterback that can move, uses a lot of deception. It starts with Billy Edwards Jr. 100%, and the staff has been very high on the fact that he came in, leader from day one. He's taken the reins. Just talked to Emilio Agard the other day. I know you and I both know him. He talked specifically as a cornerback. He's a cornerback. He said, Billy's come in and he's the captain. He's running the ship. He's exactly what we needed. So it's Billy Edwards Jr. to start with, full stop.
To that point, for those that probably don't want to remember, if you're a Wisconsin fan, they averaged under 200 yards passing last year, 102nd in the nation. And as you and I discussed, and by the way, credit to Ryan Herrings, he almost got this on the dot. I asked Ryan, what do you think Wisconsin's passing game ranked in passing plays of 20 or more yards? He guessed 117th, but out of 134 teams, the Badgers were 120th. Those are not the numbers that you want to talk about. Billy Edwards will help you get past that. That is a lock. They've got actually a couple pretty good receivers. It's the depth that Wisconsin probably struggles with the most. And I just don't think the quarterback, I don't think Locke saw the field that well. There's just no way, because they had a couple guys to run. Do they have both receivers back, both the bigger guy? I know the one kid transferred to Notre Dame. Who do they got back at receiver this year, Ryan?
Yeah, and it's a good point. Wisconsin had a better receiving room. Like, if you look at those numbers that you just read and you look at them just without any context, you say, man, Wisconsin's got to get some receivers, quarterbacks. They had some guys at receiver.
They
Will
do.
Pauling was okay. Will Pauling didn't have the greatest year last year. That's the one that transferred to Notre Dame, but he was still fine. You can win games with Will Pauling in the slot. They had Bryson Green, who Again, not a star, but he just signed a UDFA contract with the Cardinals. He's 6'3". He could run. They had Vinny Anthony, who took a huge step last year, averaged 17, 18 yards per catch. Vinny Anthony's a legit 4.45 guy with some ability after the catch. And then this year they're bringing in Jaden Ballard. I'm telling you, everybody looks great in spring, right? We all know this, the old baseball thing. Everybody's in the best shape they've ever been in. Everybody's phenomenal. Hope springs eternal, but Jaden Ballard looks phenomenal this spring. The Ohio State guy, again, talking to Emilio Agard, who's had to cover him. I asked him specifically, like, what is Jaden Ballard like in person? How fast is he? And Agard said, he got me on a move right away. And I said, I have to be on top of my game because this is like 4.3 speed. And so they've got a couple guys. It's not Ohio State's room, Oregon's room, Alabama's room, but it's a better than average Wisconsin room. And I think that's something Wisconsin fans are actually going to be excited about because on both edges with Ballard and Anthony now, they have 4'4" guys that have size. It could start to be a little spicy on offense with those type of weapons.
If they can get the chemistry and all that, they're bringing in a new quarterback. He's got, Billy's got some confidence, I'm sure, because he started at Maryland, but we'll see. Next question, which losses to the portal concern you the most, whether winter, spring? Where is it you're like, oh, that one hurt?
Yeah, this is an easy one. This is one you and I have talked a lot about. It's Xavier Lucas. You bring in a freshman cornerback from Florida, some really big-time programs were after. That's a legit 6'1" guy that runs a 4.4, that's tough, that's physical. He brings something to that room Wisconsin doesn't have, and you can't replace that. Wisconsin didn't replace that because you can't go find 6'1", 4.4 guys in the portal very easily that can move like Xavier Lucas. That one hurts. You and I talked about how big of a commitment that was. You can't then a year later say, no big deal. Wisconsin doesn't get kids like that very often. Losing him, that really hurts, Brian, because you and I talked before the show. Who does Wisconsin play this year? They play a Ryan Williams. They play a Jeremiah Smith. Now, you're not putting Lucas on an island with those guys and saying shut him down, but at least he gives you something that can run with them. He gives you an athlete that can run with them a little bit. That one hurts tremendously because the cornerback room just doesn't have that athletic piece in it. Not like that guy.
Not surprised you went with that answer, but it is what it is. Sometimes you just lose guys, and it is probably something that you're going to regret. When one of those 40-yard plays happens against Ohio State or something, you'll remember that. I get it. Position that was definitely improved through the transfer portal by the Wisconsin Badgers. Which one would that be?
Yeah, quarterback's the easy one, but we've already talked Billy Edwards, so I think I'll pass on that one. I think it's the front seven. You look at last year's Wisconsin front seven, that defensive line, and it was undersized, right? You had guys like Elijah Hills, who's 290, Gio Paez, who's 290. James Thompson Jr. was hurt the whole year. And none of these guys are elite guys anyway, but it was just small for the Big Ten. And you saw that show up in games against Minnesota. You saw that show up in a game against Iowa where Iowa dropped 42 on us, Brian, and they threw the ball 10 times. It wasn't big enough. And they've gone in the portal. They've added Parker Peterson, who's 300+ from Tulane. They've added Corey Walker, who's 290. They've added Michael Garner, who's 300+. JVR Suggs from LSU's 310. They got Charles Perkins, who's like 320. They just got bigger and more physical and a little tougher. Again, I don't think any of these guys are necessarily stars, but they're deeper. They have more bodies, and they have more bodies with size to throw at opposing offenses, which I think we've talked a lot about TFLs and where Wisconsin was. Part of TFLs is putting offenses in disadvantaged positions, right? It's putting offenses in 3rd and 7. And there was too many games last year where offenses lived in 3rd and 4, 2nd and 2. So I think they're better there. I think they got bigger and tougher in the front 7.
Now on the back end of that, with the Xavier Lucas loss, has the secondary overall taken a step back since last year? Or is it at least – has it really? I was going to say, is it at least close?
I think it's close. I don't think it's a massive step back because you still have Ricardo Holman coming back, who he was borderline. Am I going to go? Am I not? 2 years ago, he had 7 picks. Last year was maybe a bit of a down year, but they also just didn't really throw at him. They didn't have to. He's good. He's solid. And Nazir Forkran's coming back, who was probably on par with Rico. So you have 2 really veteran, solid corners. But you also lost Hunter Wohler. Indianapolis Colts picked him in the 7th round to the safety spot. I think you took a bit of a step back at the safety spot. They have veterans everywhere. But you lose that athletic piece in Xavier Lucas. You lose the heart and soul of your defense in Hunter Wohler. I don't think there's any way it doesn't take a little bit of a step back, unfortunately, for the Badgers.
When we come back, we're going to finish up on the transfer portal side, and then I'm going to ask Ryan about some recruiting stuff. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. For me, it's three-point shots. I was a guy that liked to shoot a lot when I was younger from beyond the arc. But you could do all kinds of things. You could also go into that with about any sport, with football, with baseball, or anything else. Player props are a way that you can do it. And you can also live bet on player props or anything else. So don't miss out. Head over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, let's get Ryan back on here. Ryan, next question for you. Your feeling about Wisconsin's offensive line, like, is it what it was 10, 12 years ago? Probably not. But is it still upper echelon Big Ten? And should they have taken somebody else, like an elite player from the portal?
This is an interesting time to ask this question because Wisconsin a week ago lost their left tackle for the year. ACL injury, Kevin Haywood.
Oh, man, that's rough.
Huge blow, devastating blow. And this is a guy that, again, you've been on my show. We talked about him, blue chip guy. He was penciled in this year, and not just penciled in this year. People were beaming about how good Big Kev was going to be on that left side. So he goes down, and it just sucks. Yeah, I talked to the family, talked to him a little bit. This was a guy who, internal in this program, people have said this is the most ready offensive lineman that's coming here since Travis Frederick, right? He could have played last year as a true freshman, and he was penciled in without question as the starting left tackle this year. And there's not much depth there. This is an offensive line that's not very deep to begin with. You lose your starting left tackle before the fall camp even begins. So it's an issue right now in terms of depth. Who's going to play left tackle? Do we shuffle the lifeboats a little bit? Does a guard move over to play tackle, and then you put one of the younger guys at guard? There is a lot of young talent on this roster. They've recruited there really well the last 2 seasons, but it's a lot of freshmen, redshirt freshmen. So they just picked up I have his name right here, Davis Heinzen out of Central Michigan. He's played a couple years, upperclassman. I don't think you want him starting, but it's maybe a solid depth piece, a swing tackle. Maybe he can go in at guard, and one of your more athletic younger guards can flop out to tackle. But there's things to answer here, Brian, and I don't have a great answer of who's playing left tackle. And you and I both know with the schedule Wisconsin plays this year, with the defensive fronts they're going to go up against, that could be a major issue for this Badgers team.
I'm just going to go. This is off the top of my head, and I know Ryan will have more. Bama, Oregon, Ohio State, Iowa. Do they play Illinois?
Illinois.
That's just a super just those 5. Forget the other 7 ball games. You're pretty much telling me they're going to lose the line of scrimmage in those 5. Is that
Michigan as well? They play Michigan as well on the road.
Michigan lost to 2 D tackles, but they still got some other talent. Those guys, I mean, they're not going to replace them. They're both first-round picks. But scheme's good. Coaching staff remains. They did a pretty good job last year, even though they literally lost their entire defensive coaching staff when Jim Harbaugh left. That's insane. So they were pretty good at the end of last year. Give them some credit. Man, Wisconsin, you're betting the over. I'm not. After the left tackle news, the left tackle news makes me very nervous for Wisconsin.
Yeah. No,
that's your LT, man. That's rough, bro. That's rough.
That's a huge blow. It's a huge blow. I would counter the over is not very high, so it's not necessarily a high.
And it shouldn't be. If that's schedule.
I agree, and it shouldn't be. So here's where, if you're looking at the offensive line, so that's the negative, and that's the obvious. There's no getting around it. You're not replacing a Kevin Haywood, who you penciled in as a starter. The other 4 guys are pretty veteran. You have Riley Mallman at right tackle. He's been here several years. He's probably going to be a mid to late round pick next year. Jake Renfro has played a bunch of ball. Came over from Cincinnati with Fickle. They're really high on Joe Brunner, who is a former 4-star guard out of Wisconsin. He's going to be kind of a mauler in the middle. Like, the other pieces you feel pretty good about. It's just, gosh, man, it's just such a blow when you lose a guy in practice and a guy that plays left tackle. It's just irreplaceable. But in the other spots, they feel pretty good. So if you want to paint and here's the other thing, if there is a silver lining to any of this, and there's not when you lose a left tackle, but at least it happened now where you have summer, you have fall. They're going to have time to figure out which pieces maybe make the most sense to flop over there. But I'm beating the dead horse here. There's no replacing a starting left tackle in college football.
Not really. There's really not. Did Wisconsin spend enough money in NIL on the transfer portal?
It's a really good question. Enough money for what? Enough money to be like a national title contender? I mean, obviously not, right? Enough money to
at least to move themselves up into the 8-9 win category. I'm not saying they're going to be the Buckeyes overnight, but that's not realistic. But move themselves up.
Yeah, man, it's a great question. I think they did really well in the portal. I'll start with this. I think this was a really tactically well done offseason. And when I say tactically, I mean they really addressed needs. I thought they really attacked spots they had to fill pretty purposefully. And I think they found really nice pieces in that sense. They don't have a mega donor, right? We talked about this a little before the show. It's hard to spend enough money to win in the Big Ten if you don't have a guy who's just pumping money into the program. And I think some of that is on Wisconsin too. Like Wisconsin needs to win, right? Show people that this is a program that is going to take that money and use it well and win and develop players. I think they had a pretty good offseason. Did they spend enough to win 8-9 games? I don't think so. If I'm being perfectly blunt, I think the schedule plays into that. I do think they spent enough and made enough additions this offseason to go from what they did last year into a more coherent version offensively and defensively this year. So maybe I'm waffling a little bit. I think as a fan, and obviously I'm a fan who does a show, you always want them to spend more. That's true for every team I cheer for. Like I'm a Braves fan. I wish they spent more this offseason. So I wish they spent more, but I think they spent what they had pretty well, if that makes sense.
That's fair. That's fair. Next up, transfers who surprised for the Badgers. Somebody you like that maybe he didn't get that much fanfare. Name somebody. Pick either one, either the winter or spring portal.
Okay. So Ballard is definitely one, but we talked about Jaden Ballard. Let's talk a little bit about this. That's a really good question. Transfers that surprised. We talked. Here's actually a really interesting one, and this is one that when it happened, I was just kind of like, okay, I kind of get it, but I don't think there's anything here. So Danny O'Neal comes in from San Diego State.
Yeah. Quarterback. I know him.
Yeah, and this was kind of an interesting one because the Badgers had their guy, Billy Edwards, like that's the starter. And a lot of people are fired up about Carter Smith, right? The 4-star coming out of Florida. And the thought is Billy Edwards is the guy this year. Obviously, Carter Smith or someone else is the future. And then you got Danny O'Neal just in case this year, in case something happens, you have a quarterback with some snaps that can go in, right? He's the insurance policy this year, but that's all it is. And he's played really well this spring. He's pretty mobile. He's quick. He's decisive. And it's gone from this is a guy that's literally just a little bit of veteran experience in case something happens to he's a placeholder to maybe this is the guy after Billy Edwards Jr. Or at least he's put himself in that discussion. And I think Badger fans have been surprised by how good he's looked in spring, how quick and decisive and fast. He's got some gunslinger to him. He's got enough arm. He's a guy that I wrote off probably too early. Wrote off is the wrong term, but I didn't make as much out of it as I thought, as I think I probably should have. And it might be a quarterback battle next year with him and Carter Smith.
That makes it fun for you, and it's good content. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. Last question on the portal before we move to recruiting. Where should the Wisconsin Badgers have spent more as far as a position? Because they're, okay, we didn't get it done here. Where would that be?
Offensive line. And I was saying this actually before Kevin Haywood got hurt.
Oh, goodness.
There's not a lot of experience depth there. Again, I think they got themselves in a spot where we like our starting 5 and we really like the last 2 recruiting classes. We don't want to bring somebody in and then, right, it's one of those things you and I talk about. If you bring someone in that's more of a veteran to be a backup, do you then maybe push one of those younger guys out where they're not getting the reps in the 2 deep? But there just is not a lot of veteran depth on this offensive line. And I was already a little worried, and it's something I've talked about specifically on my show. What happens if you lose a starter on this line? I wish they would have brought in another swing tackle or a guard from a lower level that's played 3 years that you isn't a star, but you felt okay with if the bullets are flying. You have to shove them in there in the second quarter. So I think that's one. And then a cornerback. This is really hard though because everybody wants a cornerback that can run. Like I think they did too, right? You want somebody who could come in and play a little bit of what Xavier Lucas was going to give you, but every team in college football wants that. So it's kind of hard for me to harp on them for not getting that guy.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, there aren't a lot of Xavier Lucas prospects in the transfer portal. When we come back, we're going to talk about the recruits that the Badgers are bringing in, who makes an impact this next season. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get great playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off draws closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60% off. That 60% isn't just on the NBA playoffs. It could be a movie theater that you want to go to, comedy. It could be a Metallica concert. It could be just about anything. Game Time has got your back. The all-in pricing is also something that's cool because if you're like me, you've probably had an item that you wanted to buy, saw the price of the ticket, and then you get to the counter and it's totally different. Not with Game Time, all-in pricing. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Ryan, I know this is something that you've been waiting to. I feel I know what your answer is going to be here, and you've been waiting about 2 years to give this answer. Name the freshman for the Badgers that is going to be an impact player and why.
Who is Nicholas Clayton?
That would be, and why do I bring that up? Why is that, Ryan?
How many conversations have we had about, there's really two things, receiving talent and guys that get to the quarterback. That's been 80% of our podcasts, I feel like. Man, he looks good early. Okay. Man, and you, this is somebody you talked about. This is somebody you highlighted as a guy that was a really nice pickup for the Badgers. That's somebody we talked about on our show. I was fortunate to have him on the show, talk about his game a little bit. Spring practice, spring showcase. I mean, everybody calls it something different. The Badgers called it the spring showcase. He had 2 sacks. He had a play where he just ran down a quarterback in the open field. Just something that he just uniquely has that a lot of Badger front seven guys don't. He just has unique speed, unique quickness, unique length. And he's already up to, he came on campus 195 is how much he weighed. He's up to 220, 222 in spring. I think he's going to be 230 by fall. He's playing. He's playing, and he's probably going to play quite a bit on those 3rd and 7s we referenced. He's going to be that guy. And he looks like a tremendous pickup for the Badgers. So, that's the first one I'd highlight.
I just want to give a clap right now for the Wisconsin Badgers. They finally have signed a pass rusher. It is a very special day in Ryan Herring's life. Now, instead of an impact offensive or defensive recruit or whatever, who's a guy that Wisconsin fans, okay, we got this guy. He may not be like Nicholas Clayton and be that total impact guy. Who's somebody that might be a year away? And they're like, Clayton's adding some weight. Who's somebody else that could make an impact after a redshirt year or just plays, special teams and whatnot this season?
Really good question. There's a couple that pop to mind. I'll give you one on offense, one on defense. Hardy Watts on offense, the kind of a 4-star interior offensive lineman, enrolled early. He's already worked himself into the 2 deep. And again, this is partially in certain areas. This is partially because Wisconsin doesn't have a ton of veteran depth there, but he's pretty advanced, pretty physical. We knew that coming out of high school. I think he's a guy redshirt year. Next year, he starts to fight for a starting spot. And then I'll give you a bit of a sleeper on defense. Kairos Gaines. So he's a late commit for the Badgers cornerback. There was some helium on him. Some other schools were starting to get in on him. Good length, 6'1", can run decently. Not a burner, but I think a really good fit for kind of a zone corner that'll keep people in front of him. Pretty physical, enrolled early, and has already had a couple picks in spring ball. Has already started to show it as a true freshman enrolling early. Again, at a spot that you and I have talked about. the Badgers need some more people there. So if you're looking for maybe someone who doesn't have a ton of fanfare, Cairo Skanes is a cornerback that you could fit into that mold for sure.
Will Jalen Williams, the freshman defensive lineman out of Palatine, Illinois, get much run this year?
I don't think so. I think there's two reasons for that. First of all, I mean, that's a highly hyped, commit the Badgers got, flipped from Michigan, 4-star kid. But the Badgers, again, they added a ton of bodies in the front seven this year, and a ton of guys that have 1 year left, 2 years left. I think there's going to be too many bodies in that room. And then I think he's hurt by not enrolling early. This is a player that's
I thought he did. Yeah, that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah. So I think for those reasons, probably not. But definitely a guy, you put a pin in that, and in a year or 2 years, absolutely. Because that's another player who Wisconsin doesn't get a lot of guys with that physical skill set.
Well, it's important, and I'm going through their transfer list now. Like, they got a bunch of 6'5", 240 to 260 kind of guys that they're bringing in. And, like Parker Peterson, et cetera. Like, these guys have played longer. They've been through the weight room. So that makes sense. Is there any chance that Mason Posa gets a chance to not just play special teams, which I'm sure he's a lock for, but the linebacker out of New Mexico, is he going to get some serious run, even if it's just nickel defense?
Yeah, I am so excited for Posa. First of all, four-time state wrestling champion, plays everywhere on the field.
That's insane.
He's amazing.
Yeah, that's insane.
He's going to be, I think, really, really good for the Badgers, but not this year. So he's slotted in at inside linebacker. You look at what the Badgers have there. Tackett Curtis is going to be there. Tackett Curtis is finally healthy and playing really well in spring. The other guy, Christian Allegro, who a lot of national fans don't know, but Christian Allegro is the best player on this defense. He's a lightning bolt. He's physical, fast, tough. So there's the two inside linebackers. And then behind them, Cooper Catalano, a guy that you and I talked about a little bit out of Wisconsin, true freshman this year, enrolled early, has been playing really well. They have a couple other pieces at inside linebacker, including a portal piece in Antarian Turner they picked up. Their two deep's already kind of filled before Posa even steps onto campus. And because he was getting that last wrestling title, he's a guy that isn't going to enroll early. I think special teams, like, you definitely get the feet wet. Situational reps when you're winning 28-3 early in one of those non-conference games that isn't very competitive. Maybe you get them some reps. But I think next year is the year you're going to see a guy like Jalen Williams, Mason Posa really kind of unleashed.
Last question for you, Ryan. Is there a spot in the 26 class where they really got a hit besides the obvious? I mean, D-line and receiver, we know. Is there anything else in the 26 class they have to address that might be outside the scope of what some Wisconsin fans may know?
Yeah, obviously receiver's a good one. I mean, yeah, the obvious defense line, receiver, quarterback. They're already on the board at quarterback with Hopkins. Running back's, I think, a big year this year for running back at Wisconsin. 2 years ago, they picked up Dylan Jones, who we've talked about, Darion Dupree. Last year, they didn't recruit anybody. Not that they didn't recruit anybody, but they had a very select list, and they weren't able to land from that list because they had those two stud freshmen. You can't go 2 years in a row without adding talent to that room, especially at a Wisconsin, especially at a place with a Grimes offense where he wants to run the ball. So they're in very heavy on Amari Latimer. That's a big time recruiting battle.
I saw him play last year. He's a dude.
Yeah, he's super physical. Like, you talk about a guy who fits the Big Ten style of running the ball. That's Amari. So that's kind of their number one target. They've had him on campus. They're recruiting him very heavily. But yeah, they got to get a guy in that room this year, probably two, to be honest, to continue to balance out those depth classes after not getting anybody last year in that running back room.
Yeah, that's fair. I would think worst case scenario, you take a stud out of the high school ranks and maybe you get a guy that's going to be a sophomore from the portal. That way you got to make up for the class that you missed. But Wisconsin, they got some things they got to work on still. I'll get back with you on some more deal. They need at least 2 Nicholas Claytons in this class, by the way. It's time, man. You got to get the guy you're just going to be treading water. So, Ryan, tell everybody where they can find your work.
Yeah, Ryan and Bucky on Twitter, and then just Locked On Badgers, obviously on all the YouTube, iTunes, good stuff. Always down to talk Badgers. Appreciate jumping on the show, Brian. Always love talking to you, whether it's on your channel or my channel, and we'll continue doing that for sure. But yeah, appreciate it, man. Always happy to talk some Wisconsin football.
Absolutely. You can find the Portal Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate it. Give us a 5-star review on Apple, and we will see you again soon.